Friday evening, 5/17/2024. This is Chief Crow Auto Hoax, the original video, which is also genius and as smooth as the song. You're going to have to watch it. It's a collection of GIFs. It's an animated GIFs. Great content there. There's a link. You want to get the full experience, you got to get those memes downloaded into your id so they can be called upon later when I send the signal, activating the IPS hive mind. All right, let's see. We're joined here by Thirst for Truth, Diana South, Salty Siren. Okay, I just upgraded. We're now on a couple more platforms. We're back on Rumble. We are back on Facebook. And we're on IPS Think Tank at Twitter. I want to say thanks again to everyone who helped pull us through the final hurdle. The filing was accepted, and I'm working on hunting goldfinch. And weirdly, synchronistically, in the last 2 days, I have seen goldfinches. One of them landed on a barbed wire fence next to me and sang, and the other one was atop a tree next to my truck when I left the place where I was getting coffee. And I don't usually see these, and I think it's just interesting because one of my last comments was that I was going goldfinch hunting. By the way, phones are open for the entire evening, 505-349-0420. Quite a lot to talk about, of course. We barely got into this King Charles painting, and everybody's saying it's demons, but I'm still questioning the premise that if you hold anything up to a mirror, is it not pretty much a simple matter to create a vaguely goat-like visage? Like, everything can't be Baphomet. But Jones here says the portrait of the king has demon faces all over it.
He is the main heir to Vlad the Impaler. You can't make that up. And there are demon faces all over it.
Now, a main heir to Vlad the Impaler. That's interesting. You remember in Vlad's castle in Transylvania, they were giving free vaccinations. In fact, I think you got two, like a couple of fangs. And this is probably true. Bram Stoker's Dracula has that line, "The blood is the life," which may tie into his understanding of Thelema, and he was a member of the Golden Dawn, which was an offshoot of the OTO. Very interesting character there. There's a lot of hype about this. The main thing that stands out to me, and the most obvious thing, is how it matches this theme that has started since Barbie. You know, the pink. And pink being, of course, the color of the Scarlet Woman, the Whore of Babylon, in its newest iteration. And that's what Barbie represents. You know, the iconoclasm exhibited in that movie and the elevation of a certain feminine archetype and the color pink are all synonymous with this occult religion, this cryptopsy, and their goddess, which we're always talking about their color symbolism. And then, of course, this is right after the sky turned pink, if you're looking through your camera, I guess. And then you also had the Godzilla movie, where his color turns pink before he sends off lasers out of his eyes or something. I have to watch it. But anyway, the pink thing is nothing new here. But as far as, what does this mean? Is it demonic? Are there Baphomets on it? There's a great misunderstanding about what Baphomet is. People conflate it with the devil. And it's not really even an entity in the sense of it being like a god with the mythology and people worshipped it in the usual sense. Not at all. It's more of a combination of alchemical concepts. Man being something of a amalgamation, a combination between beast and angel and somewhere in between. It's a little more profound than saying it's the devil, but it's really getting tiresome. Everything's the devil. When did conspiracy theory become synonymous with becoming some kind of a church lady or adopting this reflexive fear of numbers and symbols and pizza emojis? And we know Pizzagate was a hoax, by the way. You can go ahead and eat pizza. It doesn't mean that you are some kind of a human trafficker. You can eat pizza. You can even eat hot dogs. You really can. Now, I still don't understand what Obama was doing with $60,000 worth of hot dogs. That has never been adequately explained, although I suspect it's cocaine. I really think that's what it's about, cocaine, but we'll see. We'll find out eventually, right? Once there's disclosure, any day now, in 2 weeks. Isn't that the latest on the whole Q thing? The whole disclosure's about to happen. Just hold your breath. It's really sick how long they've kept this thing going, by the way. There's actually a term for it in emotional abuse. It's called future faking. This sort of a inverted version of the doomsday prophecy where it's like this hope's day where there's going to be this great awakening and everything's going to be revealed and your electric bill is going to be covered by Nisara and Gasara and you never have to work again. Just insanity. But that's what we're doing. We're looking at the insanity because we need to understand the dominant operating systems at work on the world stage today. How people are programmed to react and think, especially as we round the next, I guess, the next quarter here. We're moving into riot season, which I'm kind of looking forward to. We're really close to June 11th's expected nuking of Seattle. So if you're looking forward to that, make sure you have your calendar marked. We want to watch it live on JL's channel. And if that happens, we know for a fact what's going to happen to Trump on 8/4. And if you're not really familiar with what I'm talking about, Jewrassic-Liars has made this more or less prophecy, but I would say an informed guess that Seattle's going to get nuked on 6/11, and on Obama's birthday, Trump's going to get JFK'd. And by the way, I just finished watching A Man in Fool, the Netflix show that is it's a story based on like Tom Wolfe's book. However, they totally manipulated it to make it about Trump. And spoiler alert, because we're giving you spoiler alerts here at Infinite Plane Radio, our spoiler alerts aren't about the movies. It's about what's going to happen in the world. And just like at the end of Civil War, they kill a Trump-like guy. Well, at the end of this movie, the Trump-like guy dies, obviously. It has to be. And this has just been a reoccurring theme again and again. But in this particular one, interestingly, the mayor is clearly based on Obama. And this there's this dialectic between this Obama and this Trump character, and they're actually enemies. But it's just to me, it looks like maybe there's something to JL's conception that if Trump gets it, it's going to be more or less blamed on Obama. All right, joined by AJ206, Shannon Jones, Smarty Pants, Frank Murr, Howard Boyd, Mango Penguins, Do Us Some Para. Howard says, "Get him, buddy." Yeah, the lawsuit's in the works. Now we're at the point where we can focus on this again, which is far more important. We want the victory. We want to punch Big Brother in the nose, publicly. They need to own up to their mistakes. And look, we're not the only ones. This channel is not the only channel. A lot of people would have given up after 70 or 80 channels being pulled. We stopped counting after 150. And that's how many times we were hit. And this is why I think we have a strong case, because obviously the system was abused. But how many people didn't stick with it because they didn't have a network? They didn't gang up. But we're not done. We have to get the victory. And once that happens, names will be dropped and the story will be revealed. And who knows, maybe we will get a peek behind the curtain. How corrupt is it? Is YouTube just a sock puppet for the Pentagon? Is it some kind of mind control operation disguised as a social media platform? All right, continuing here. Ollie Goering says pink and delicious. Yeah, it does look like icing. And I don't think it's been adequately explained. I know there's a monarch butterfly on it. But King Charles also had this invitation to some event where they put the Green Man's face on it. He's had a lot of interesting kind of connections with the occult and the pagan, and some have suggested that he's the Antichrist, but no, it's Trump. Let's see, continuing through your comments. All right, let's see. Phones are open again. I just turned on the ringer. I think someone was just trying to call in, so if you want to try again, go for it. And look, I'm going to move on to a different phone system. I talked to Zach Hubbard the other day. I called him up to talk about flat Earth, which it's a topic he hates. And he has this idea. He's like, if I was a shill, I would say the Earth is flat because then I'd get all that money. Like he seems to think that if you talk about the Earth being flat, you're rolling in money. No, it's the opposite. It's tremendously. Um, it's just such a huge. There's a price you pay. It's beyond just um, the opposite of a good business decision. It's tremendously foolish from a business perspective to take something that instantly gets you demonetized, banned, blacklisted, and everything else. So no, nothing could be further from the truth. But one of the reasons why I want to switch to Blog Talk Radio, which I mentioned the other day, is I was listening to Zach Hubbard, where you call in and you can listen while you're on hold, and then he can unmute you, bring you on, and you can talk, and it develops this caller queue, and it's a very organized system. And I think if I use that system instead of this, we will have back-to-back callers, and I think it'll be a lot easier for people to get in without having to wait, where you can wait while listening with your phone on speaker. It's a great system, so I'm going to implement that likely tonight or this weekend, and we'll test it out because we want to get more callers. We have a lot of people with press passes, and as the summer heats up, we want to get full coverage. And we had riot coverage. One of our reporters was hit by a baton. He was maced. His camera was broken, and he witnessed a car running over a few MAGAs. A couple legs got broken. So we tend to get in the thick of it. And when this happens, of course, we want to have this open platform system running on all cylinders. Tozer says Jewrassic-Liars is trying to call you. Okay, well, my phone's open. The number's on the screen. I'll be reaching out to him soon. I will definitely be reaching out to him. Salty says, I love working out. Here, I saw a comment. You said, I paced 5 miles in my house today. It's kind of like Ready Player One, where everyone is like on a treadmill with an AVR or an Oculus headset. Where you're, and I've even heard some comments from WEF types. Like, why do you need to travel? You can just go into the metaverse. And it sounds ludicrous, but if you really think about it, look, I go to the foothills and I'm like, where is everybody? I'm pretty sure there's more than a few dozen people in the city, but early in the mornings, people opt into the metaverse, the comfort of the home theater. Why would you go out? Yeah, that'd be great if JL calls in. Now, this is what we're facing, though. We're facing the comfort of the Matrix pod versus the real world, the desert of the designated real. And I think right now is a great time to get involved in the real world because the the metaverse dominant media framework isn't ready for real people. You'll notice how many anonymous people become influencers or are just able to attain large channels and large followings, but they're not accountable. That's my problem with anonymous. I don't care if you use pseudonyms, monikers, doesn't matter. My my issue is anonymous individuals who are not accountable for when they are wrong. And we intend to fix that by bringing things to the surface. Eddie F says Zach is still doing sports. Yeah, I find that to be peculiar. I'm not judging, but you take the sacred numerology, Kabbalah, mysticism, the magic of numbers, and you're like, how do I make some money with this? Like, that wouldn't be my first go to response if I had like the language that the angels use to communicate, and I'm going to use it to like win a lotto, to bet on a rigged sports game. But yes, June 11th is a big date. And before I ever talked to Jewrassic-Liars, okay, he's calling in. I'll see if before we ever spoke, I was already looking at that date because of its significance to the broader narrative of the nuke and the idea that if we get it, it's going to be from a white nationalist like Timothy McVeigh, who was executed on that date. And 6/11 is the inverse of 9/11. So if you think about it, 9/11 external terrorists, 6/11 is the domestic. Okay, my phone is open, and look, I'm very, very disappointed in Skype. I mean, this has happened so often. You know what? I'm gonna try to work this out, but I can see someone's trying to call. It's not giving me a ringer, probably because gremlins. I am 100% moving on to a different phone system. Skype has just been an unmitigated disaster. Dewis and Paris says chances he'll drop pigeon peckers on the call. Yeah, more than likely. Hey, what's up? Is this Jewrassic-Liars?
Yes, it's me, bro.
Awesome. Good to hear from you. It's been a little while.
Yeah, man. Listen, we never made an appointment to talk. That's why I kept telling you to come to the channel and tell me exactly when you're going to go live.
Okay, well, I'll be more organized about it in the future because you're my point of reference when we talk about this particular thread, this story that's being told in advance about the coming head wound on Trump. And I thought of you because I just watched Roadhouse with Jake Gyllenhaal, who's like Donnie Darko, and
Okay.
it has like this part where at the end he's got the one eye symbolism, and someone compares him to a character called Waco Wade from this western, and he's in this. Anyway, the whole thing is just consistent. This same actor foreshadowing Trump, and it has the one eye thing. So for people who don't know, um, can you kind of break down a little bit here about this Trump head wound scenario that you've been picking up on?
Well, see, that's what I'm saying. I wasn't prepared because I didn't know what you were going to talk about. But all I can tell you for right now is you have to ask me some questions, bro. Because
Okay.
I'm kind of like I'm. But let me just tell this to the viewers that on August 4th, which is Obama's birthday, August 4th, Trump is the one who gets the head wound, and most likely it's going to be in Ohio that he gets this head wound. Okay, and the reason that Trump is the one who gets the head wound is because he's the image of the Antichrist. He's the Antichrist in the flesh. And who is the real Antichrist? It's Elvis. For the people who who's never heard this theory, Elvis is the Antichrist, and Trump is the image of the Antichrist. He's the Antichrist in the flesh. You know how Jesus was God in the flesh? It's
Yes.
the same. They're mocking the Godhead. Okay, and I know you don't believe in God, which is unfortunate, but let's just go, just go with that premise since you don't believe it.
Well,
But
let me
you
add this
understand what I'm saying?
because about 2 years ago, we first talked, and since then, Trump has been consistently branded by the media through various psyops as Christ, and this whole movement has Christified him. And this is extremely blasphemous. He's selling $60 Bibles. He's being compared to Christ. He sells his suit, which he chops up into pieces, the one that he wore to jail, just like Jesus had his clothes torn up and auctioned off.
Right,
So
right.
I'm like, you've been
Yeah.
vindicated that he is definitely being portrayed as a Christ, which makes no sense considering who he is, how he lives, etc. So quite obviously, this is a mockery. He's the devil's advocate, the movie where like they use his penthouse. He has clearly been represented as the Antichrist. So you've been really spot on about this. But the
I
Elvis
did
connection,
tell.
yeah.
Yeah, and I did tell everybody once I saw that he was not actually going to stay in office because I thought he was going to stay in office somehow, but uh, then the whole picture came, you know, to light in a sense because we understood what the whole point of why Trump had to leave because it had to be Biden and the Democrats to the ones that would look bad. That way, they would be the ones, to promote the injection further and do the lockdowns and all this stuff. So that's why Trump had to leave office and let Biden do all that stuff. But once I saw that he wasn't gonna uh, stay in office, I told everybody. I said this dude will never be out of the news, not one single day, because they have to keep him relevant and they have to keep the media have to keep making him look like a villain, which he is. But the people don't know that. That's why he's got the Christians bamboozled.
Sure.
The Christians who were asleep.
No,
But I told everybody, and
mhm.
he's been in the news every single day. Go ahead.
Well, no, he has been not only in the news, but before you called, I just mentioned this show called A Man in Full. And this book is based on a book that's like 25 years old, but this TV series is 100% Trump. They have Melania in there. They have Barron. So in other words, no, Trump is always in our faces, and they're representing him as this fallen real estate magnate in this movie. And they have this Obama character who's the mayor who has like this antagonism, and he dies at the end of the movie. So like we're constantly seeing Trump die again and again. And I was just noticing how on this movie, on this TV series, on his desk, he's got a lamp shaped exactly like the Seattle Space Needle. So that's kind of why I was thinking I got to get in touch with JL because I'm seeing this conflating now of this Trump character and the Space Needle symbol, and then he dies. And you, of course, have made these connections. And a lot of people don't know this correlation between Trump and Elvis, which, again, I'm going to have people ask questions in the chat because it's probably easier that way. But from your explanation of it, we have essentially the image of the beast that has been sold to the public under the guise of a rock star and idol worship, correct?
Well, yeah, because Elvis represents what Lucifer was in heaven. Lucifer was a musician. He was like the Pied Piper, the PP, right? And I've been, if you guys watch my videos, you know that the PP is the Antichrist, but you're not going to understand that unless you watch the videos. But he represented Lucifer in heaven, and Lucifer was a musician. He was adorned in jewels, and that's what Elvis was. He was always adorned in jewels, and that's all he did was, do music. This Elvis, right? And once Elvis left the building, as they would say, Trump entered. You know what I mean? They're like the Janus twins. I mean, the Janus God, the past and the present, the PP. Once Elvis left the building, Trump entered. Just like 2 years later, he became 33 years old in the year 79 after Elvis died. That's when we really saw Trump enter the light.
Yeah, when he was 33,
But
he
go
went on
ahead.
Oprah and discussed possibly being president in the future. Like that's how long this story goes back. But what we're seeing right now, he's very much like Biff Tannen, and Biff Tannen from Back to the Future is definitely based on Trump. And if you look at Biff Tannen, and I know you've pointed this out, he looks like a perfect mashup between Elvis and Trump.
Yeah, mixture of both, especially when he has the sideburns and when he's when the building is named after him, that Biff in the movie.
Right, right. Now, something else too, because Salty Siren in the comment says Elvis, the dangly cobra head, plus the song I'm All Shook Up. The hi hat sounds like a snake hissing. She documented it in her Mary Magdalene video. So the snake thing, like Trump and the snake poem, and in this movie I just watched, A Man in Full, the Trump character wrestles a rattlesnake. So what's this snake thing? Is it
Well, I told you Elvis. This June 11th event. See, I have two predictions. June 11th, the state of Washington gets struck. It's most likely all of King County, where Seattle is, because Seattle should be ground zero, but it's going to affect all of the west and north side and probably all of Washington state. So you got to get out of Washington before June 11th. And the word Washington, just those letters, WASHINGTON, that word equals the serpent. Okay, so literally, Washington is the serpent, right? And everything with Elvis, has to do with. I'll give you an example of Elvis having to do with the serpent. On the show The Masked Singer, who was the serpent? Who was under the serpent mask? It was a guy named Dr. Elvis. And Dr. Elvis was the guy who was that singing doctor, some black dude during the pandemic. What a bunch of
right?
nonsense.
Okay, now something
Anyway, he
else.
was under the serpent mask.
Yeah, you said the serpent thing, and the other thing you've connected them to that I think is relevant here is the sea, the beast from the sea. What's the connection there? You CC Rider and all this stuff. And the reason I ask this
Well,
is I have found a ton of connections that connect Trump to Abaddon in the abyss. In other words, the destroyer in the ocean. So, like, what is the water thing with Trump that you've pointed out?
well, I believe because Elvis is the Antichrist, the beast out of the sea revelation has to be this Washington event, because Elvis is the phoenix rising. He is the beast out of the sea. He's the camel that shoots through the eye of the needle, the space needle. He is the kraken. He is the sea goat. He's a Capricorn, Elvis, and their symbol is the sea goat. And there's a place, for the people who've never seen my videos, there's the furthest northwest or the furthest west of Washington. It's exactly the head of Elvis.
I've seen
Elvis's
it.
head is the
It's
yeah
literally
yeah
like if you look at the map, it looks like Elvis's hair. It's perfectly his profile, and he's staring out into the
yeah
west, into the sea.
right yeah. And just like Trump is the Florida, his hair is Florida, and it looks like a pistol also. So it's got dual heads right there, and but listen to this. Speaking of Biff, the Back to the Future, you've heard me play the guy who wrote Back to the Future. He's one of the writers. I think the other one was Zemeckis. This guy was Bob Gale. And listen to what Bob Gale says. Since you guys can't see it, listen to what he says. Watch this.
Okay.
Tell me if you can hear it.
Correct. In part two, when Biff owns a casino and needs to put his name and his picture on everything, one of the inspirations for that was Mr. Trump.
So some fans believe that Back to the Future predicted the 9/11 attack.
Of course. Of course. We predicted everything. We predicted the assassination of John F. Kennedy years after.
That's another one. That's another one.
Yeah. We predicted Elvis's death. And his resurrection, which hasn't happened yet, but it will. Now, we predicted Elvis's death. And his resurrection, which hasn't happened yet, but it will.
What?
Can you believe that?
Wow.
Can you believe that he said that?
It's like, is he even joking? Like that is like quite literally true. I mean,
yeah. Well, he said he was joking at the end. At the end, after he said, "Oh yeah, I was just joking." He said like that. But you know why he's not joking? It's because he would have stopped at saying that we predicted Elvis's death. That would have been the end of the joke. Well, why would you have to say that you're predicting his resurrection? And he didn't just say that. He said, which hasn't happened yet, but it will. I mean, he just went like, added the cherry on top of the cherry on top of the cherry,
Okay. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And again, that's the Back to the Future. It does have some of the clearest predictive programming for 9/11, and it connects Donald Trump to a certain, not only to the Twin Towers and 9/11, but to the number 88, for example, and concepts like time travel. And what we're seeing here, I think, is the introduction of this twin concept, because what you're pointing out is that Trump and Elvis are essentially twins in this story, that they're intimately connected. Can you explain this twin concept and why it's so prevalent?
Well, yeah. Elvis had an identical twin, not just a twin, an identical, they said. Elvis had an identical twin that was either dead at birth, or he was sacrificed, who knows, or he's alive, nobody knows. But Trump is the replacement twin for that twin, because, see, an identical would mean that there would be two antichrists, so they can't be two. Elvis has to be the number one. That's why that second one had to get rid of the other twin, and that's why Trump is needed to make sure that this insane script that they're putting out there comes to fruition. But the twin connection, just like they took down the two twins and there's one, right? And when they put one back up, the word twin, just the word twin itself, if you spelled out the letters TWIN and numerically in the alphabet, T being the 20th letter, W being the 23rd, I being the 9th, N being the 14th letter, it would equal 66. And from Elvis's birthday, the exact day he's born, it's 66 years, 8 months, 4 days to the day the towers fell. Okay? And the word twin equals 66. And it was 66 years after and 8 months, 4 days. So, and the 8-4 is connected to, connecting Trump. Trump's going to get his head wound on 8-4. So you have that connection too, right?
That's heavy. That's good. That's really, really clear. Go on.
Yeah, but, and by the way, Donald Trump was 55 years old, and the word Satan equals 55. Okay? So that's another connection to 9/11. When 9/11 happened, Trump was 55. and as far as and America's age connects to this too, because America is 247, 248 years old right now. It's in between. It's going to be 248 on July 4th, but it's 247, 248. That's exactly the amount of days from Elvis's birthday to 9/11. Is 247 days or 248 days on a leap year. So it's 247, 248. So again, it connects because the next 9/11 is going to be the 6/11, in Washington State, in Seattle. And Seattle, its original name was New York, because that's where Manhattan, right? Manhattan was in New York. The original name of Seattle was New York.
Right, right. And
Anyway,
well, a couple of things to add to this, because you're the one who made the connection between the 33-year-old Muhammad Atta, the lead hijacker, and so it was Muhammad attacked New York, or Muhammad Atta in the lead plane, and that you made this correlation with the two T's, the Twin Towers, and then you said that Seattle is a code for sea attack. So it's this, the other one was from the air, so the coming attack will be from the sea. That's kind of been, so it's going to be like the 9/11 will be this, I think, domestic violent extremists. I think that's where it's going to be pointed at as far as the source. But a couple things here. Commenter T Dog says Biff Tannen was the king of the world in Back to the Future 2. Are you the one that said Donald means world ruler? There was someone who said
Donald, yeah, well, yeah, Donald means chief or world ruler. I mentioned that years ago, so I'm not sure
yeah, that would be you.
who I mentioned to. Yeah, but also, of course, Trump's has the Christ in his in his name too. His dad was named Christ. His middle name, his mother was Elizabeth Christ. So it's just complete mockery. You know what I mean?
Oh, didn't Elizabeth Christ die on like June 6, 1966 or something?
Yeah, she died 6/6/66, and she was born on 10/10, 1880, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And then I think one of Trump's towers, I think they said it was 665 feet tall. There's so many triple sixes around this individual, and a lot of the Christ stuff, which is really strange as well. But in the last year, they've really piled it on. I mean, to where he's selling both $60 autographed Bibles with an American flag on it and golden sneakers.
Yeah. Well, look, just real quick, let's go into the needle thing about with Elvis. What's the deal with this needle? Because so Elvis, because the Space Needle is in Seattle, and the word Space Needle, those two words, Space Needle, equals the exact same in gematria as fallen angel. Every number is the same. The forward numbers, the reverse numbers, reduced numbers, everything. So fallen angel equals Space Needle. And that's exactly who Elvis is. He's the fallen angel. He's Lucifer, who turned into Satan, right? And so this needle is so important, and that's why Trump, who is the replacement twin for Elvis's identical twin that died, that's why he was the father of the injection. So it's all about the needle. And Elvis was the first famous person to take a vaccine on live television. He took the polio injection on live television on Bill Gates' first birthday. He did it on October 28, 1956. Elvis took the needle, and also, besides that, Elvis was the first famous person to have anything to do with the Seattle Space Needle. He made a movie called It Happened at the World's Fair as soon as it opened, that Space Needle in Seattle. So this Elvis is everything to do with the needle. And also, if I'm not mistaken, I think Poseidon was the god of the water or something underwater.
Yes.
What's Poseidon?
Yeah. In fact, there's even a nuclear submarine. I think it's called the Poseidon that will send off some kind of a tsunami. So yeah.
Right. And he also was the god of horses, this Poseidon. I don't understand it, but I think it said that too. And that year that Elvis took the needle on live television, that year in horse racing, in the Triple Crown races, this horse won 2 out of the 3 races, and 2 out of 3 is 66.66667%, something like that. So so this horse won 2 out of the 3 races that year in horse racing. The year Elvis took the needle, and you know what the horse's name is?
Tell us.
No, it's Needles. So
Okay.
the year, yeah. So the year Elvis took the needle, a horse almost won the Triple Crown named Needles. Okay, and of course, in Back to the Future, there's a Needles reference. You know.
Well, let's
Uh,
draw this together too. So this is stuff you've been talking about prior to 2020. Elvis being associated with this specific monument, the Space Needle. And the Space Needle is as big as a fixture in predictive programming as the Twin Towers were. It figures very prominently. It's always being destroyed. We've always talked about this. So this was before Seattle became ground zero for the pandemic, which is highly significant. And you look at the Space Needle and its association with Seattle, and Bill Gates, whose birthday is 10/28, the day that Elvis was vaxxed. But you have this clear
right.
association here between the symbol of the Space Needle and now the needle itself, the syringe. Interestingly, the One World Trade Tower looks like a big syringe. Just kind of a side note.
Yes.
Not a
Yes.
coincidence, if you ask me. And if you look into the root of the word syringe, it actually is syrinx, which is Pan's flute. And we got pandemic, and Pan is the god of
And,
fear, the god of panic.
and like the Pied Piper, the
Oh,
Fifi, like I said.
yeah, exactly. In fact, while they were building the One World Trade Tower, it was a massive pipe. They said it was quite literally like a flute because the wind blowing through it. But we have these associations here before Trump came along between this Mark of the Beast theme, Elvis, Seattle, and the Space Needle, and now Trump comes along and he's the Vax father. So there's this connection that you already kind of forged, which is now kind of consolidating. So Trump is the symbolic um, father of this thing, which, in your view, this is the Mark of the Beast, or some kind of symbolic allegiance to what? Is that what it is?
Is what the Mark of the Beast?
The needle itself. I mean, is that symbolically what it is in this storyline, in this script?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly how the Mark of the Beast is going to be rolled out, but we'll get to that in a moment. But first, let me remind me to talk about that just real quick. Let me go back to the horse racing thing. The reason I brought up the horse racing is because besides that other connection I just talked about with the horses, the year Elvis died he died on August 16th, 1977. That year that Elvis died, in horse racing, in the Triple Crown, which is the most prestigious thing a horse can do, is win the Triple Crown, which is winning 3 races within a 1-month period. It's called the Triple Crown. And what horse won that year Elvis died? What's the name of the horse? You know it?
I think I recall you saying it. Was it named Seattle Slew? Is that the one?
Yeah. So Seattle Slew wins the Triple Crown the year Elvis died. And slew means to violently kill. Because, in the Bible, Cain slewed Abel. It's like a past tense for the word slay.
Gotcha, gotcha. In fact,
So,
T-Dog says
yeah, go ahead.
Godfather has the horse head scene. And just kind of reminded me, the director of The Godfather, Francis Ford Coppola, is releasing this movie called Megaopolis. And this was going to be released before 9/11. He was going to work on it, but they had to change the script because it predicted 9/11. Just another example of how I think a lot of these directors are given messaging to put in their films, and they don't even know how
Yeah,
it plugs in.
hold, yeah, hold on one second. I forgot to mention what day Seattle Slew won the Triple Crown. He won it on June 11th. So Seattle Slew won the Triple Crown on June 11th.
Okay.
That's what's so important, Besides him winning the horse named Seattle Slew, he won it on 6/11. And I didn't even know that when I made my prediction. That's the most incredible part of it. Oh, and by the way, one of the I think your viewers is here. He's because I remember talking about this too. The guy who designed the World Trade Center building had something to do with designing the World's Fair in Seattle. Something to do with the space. I don't know, but somebody's mentioning that. I remember talking about that once, but I don't remember now.
Well,
Uh,
the Space Needle thing, because we're getting close to 6/11, and the Space Needle being destroyed has been a reoccurring theme for a long time. and June 11th is coming up, and there is a huge amount of supportive narrative for some kind of domestic terrorists somehow getting their hands on a nuke. And Seattle has also had a number of very conspicuous simulations for like a tsunami hitting downtown. I think they're prepared for it. And then we have Fallout by Jonathan Nolan. We have Fallout on Amazon, which is about people in bunkers. So we're already psychologically, I think, prepared for this event in Seattle. I don't believe in nukes as far as I don't think they're real, but I think they're fakeable. And I think they can create a massive panic and they can simulate EMP, for example. But to continue on this, though, your whole concept here or your
Well,
description, what's going to happen in Seattle? Is it just a nuke? But what about Elvis? How does Elvis show up in this?
well, I believe that if they get rid of that Elvis head, because it's all about getting a head wound. You know, in the Bible, it talks about the beast getting a head wound. So, so it's going to be like a dual head wound. The Washington State gets a head wound, and Trump gets his head wound in Ohio, and on August 4th. But the Washington State event is June 11th. But so it gets a head wound, and so if that head becomes their point of reference, and you know that Seattle's in King County, and Elvis was known as the King, right? And so if that part of Washington that looks like his head, that would be a reason. See, in the Bible it says that people will worship his image or the number of his name or his name. So it could be just the image that they're worshiping. So if somehow they make the mark somehow connect to this Washington, you know, this place, and you know, that would be a connection to Elvis or the number 42, because Washington is the 42nd state. Elvis died at the age of 42. You know. So
Right.
that's another connection.
It's a
Yeah.
big one. In fact, the number 42 has all kinds of connections with this concept of nukes, of fallout. It's actually pretty consistent. The Seattle Space Needle has a 42-second elevator ride, and the UFO at the top is 42 meters wide. It's totally encoded with that number. And the number 42, as many people here are familiar with already, references L, Saturn, the cube, and even Elvis. You know, the name Elvis has that connotation, EL, fallen angel
Yeah.
stuff.
El means God in Hebrew.
So, according to some rumors, it looks like the Seattle is a location for Fallout where it ends. Just another connection. And by the way, Westworld ended where they had these consistent references to these space needle like structures. So, there's something about the thing, like with the Twin Towers, the One World Tower, there's something about the architecture, the monument itself, that is being projected onto the collective psyche, and it's always attendant with EMP, blackout, reset, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, speaking of Seattle, the word EL, Seattle's anagram is EL state. I'm using every letter just one time and using every letter. EL state is the anagram for Seattle. So what better place for Elvis than to birth L than L state? So EL state, EL means God. So they're going to destroy the state of God, and they're going to rebirth their God. Okay, and what better place to birth EL than EL state, right?
Yeah, and we're not talking about just an explosion or some singular event, just like another run-of-the-mill psyop, but we're talking about something as transformative as 9/11. That's how big of an event
Oh,
this is meant to be.
right. Let me just before see, the reason I'm interrupting you, I apologize. The reason I'm doing that is because I have all these thoughts in my head. If I don't say it right away, I'll forget. So so remember, I was telling you that they're going to birth EL out of the L state, right? And it just so happens that birth L, BIRTHEL, equals exactly the word Lucifer in gematria. Okay? Every number is the same. So just ask yourself, how is this possible? These connections, you know? Like it's too impossible. That's why it has to be scripted from beginning to end. Anyway, as far as Seattle also connecting to the needle, which we were doing earlier, Seattle was the first place to get the sickness, the 19 sickness. And I was telling everybody that Lucifer lost his 19 crown before the 19 crown came out, because you know the corona means crown. I was telling everybody before the 19 crown ever came into existence that Lucifer lost his 19 crown, because Lucifer equals 74, and when he became Satan, he lost 19 because Satan equals 55. So he needed his 19 crown, okay? And you think it's a coincidence that it came into Seattle the first place? And I'm telling everyone that the 19 crown is connected to Lucifer. And there was even a show called Station 19 about firefighters. And this before the 19 sickness came out. It was about the firefighters in Seattle. And Station 19, it was called. And this year, right now, it's about to end. The final season's coming up, and it's a big. The final season has to do with the whole Washington being on fire. This last episode is coming up next Thursday.
Okay, interesting. And
wait.
Go on.
One last thing.
Yeah,
don't forget.
Go
Don't forget what you're going to say. One last thing about the first place that got the 19 sickness, the 19 crown, was in Seattle. The first death was in King County, which Seattle's in King County. The first death in King County, first outbreak was in King County, and who was the first famous person to get it? It was Tom Hanks. Now you should know this. What was Tom Hanks doing when he got the sickness?
Typing on a Corona typewriter for one thing.
No. Yeah, besides that, what was he doing?
He was in Australia. It was on fire. He was heading to Australia to fight climate change.
He was filming the Elvis movie.
Oh shoot, you're right. He was filming the Elvis movie because he plays Elvis's what's the guy's name? Tom Parker?
Manager.
Yeah.
Yeah, he played the manager, yeah.
Look,
yeah. See what I mean?
Yo,
look at the connection.
No, this is incredible. I mean, I was just thinking about Corona, meaning the crown. And the first UFO, just there's a connection here, landed in Corona Field out there in Roswell. And so I've been looking back at this, first UFO sighting, the beginning of the nuclear age and all this stuff. And when I'm looking at the symbolism here, they made it very clear when they said it's Barbieheimer. Barbie came out at the same time as Oppenheimer. So I made this correlation. Barbie is Babylon, and the nuke is the beast. Well, then Godzilla comes out. And it turns out in my research, Godzilla is a metaphor for the atomic bomb. And Godzilla comes out of the sea, a beast from the sea, like the Kraken. So you have another connection here with the beast and the nuke, which is, again, Elvis, the beast, and the nuking of Seattle. So it's just another element here that I think that reinforces what you're building up here.
Yeah, that's a good one. And you know that the word Godzilla equals exactly the word 19. Exactly. Same numbers and everything. Anyway, so as far as what event is going to happen, what is this event going to be? First of all, it has to be 100 times what 9/11 was. Okay, it's got to be, because it has to change the world in order for this to end up being some type of way to bring the mark in. It has to be a game changer. Not 9/11 was it obviously it was a game changer, but we've already seen it. So this has to be much bigger than 9/11. Because this way the whole world will be in on it. See, it can't just be America who's in on it. Okay, it starts in America, but it has to involve other countries, and that's why it would have to be a supposed nuke. And you know what we think, me and you are on the same page on that. I don't believe in nukes. I believe that they already planted all the explosives everywhere. And that's what that whole Beirut explosion was all about on August 4th, 2020. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
and you know I
absolutely.
was born.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was born in Beirut, Lebanon. You know,
Yeah,
and
that's right. That's kind of
uh,
a weird coincidence, given that you're the one who pieced together this puzzle, and you had that connection to that place. I remember that day, and I was like, "That's weird."
yeah, yeah,
Twin explosions, and it
yeah,
was like,
yeah, and it was August 4th. The day I'm telling you, Trump's going to get his head one. It was all connected. Uh, uh, you know, to because you got to remember, 9/11 is 8 months, 4 days in between Elvis's birthday and 9/11. It's 8 months, 4 days, and um, so that's why 8/4 is important also because you know Obama being born on 8/4. That's why he was the president before Trump, and because Trump's going to get the head one on Obama's birthday. But uh,
well, let me run this by
man,
you
I
because
forgot. Oh,
you've probably seen this because you often get into like the numbers, the primes even. And so Trump's walking around with 45, 47 on his head because he's going to be 47 and he was 45. And so you look at these numbers, well, 45 is 9, 47 is 11 when you add them. So you have a 911 on the side of his head. But then the number 4,547 is the 616th prime. So 616 is another number kind of associated with the Antichrist. So it's like, what are the odds? Another Antichristy number on his head with the 911 connected to it.
yeah, and by the way, I have such an incredible video coming soon on why, how for sure Trump's going to get his head wound on August 4th. It's going to, like I said, it's going to destroy the whole, you know, like there'll be no, you know, no doubt in anyone's mind after I show this video. But just real quick, let's go back to the what could happen on June 11th. So let's say it's a supposed nuke, okay? Then they destroy, you know, whatever they do. Let's see, you know, I'm not sure how big this first event is going to be, the original uh, strike. But what could happen is it could trigger multiple catastrophes. So what if it triggers an earthquake? It triggers a volcano. It triggers a tsunami. So you could have all this, you know, connections. Oh, and by the way, you were asking me about the B side of the sea. Why Elvis? Because Elvis, his name equals water in gematria. Every single number is the same as water and as reset. Reset equals water, reset equals Elvis, water equals Elvis, reset equals Elvis. So how did God reset the earth? With the flood, with water. So that's why Elvis is the B side of the sea. His name equals water, you know?
Yes, yes. And let's see, there's something else here. Oh, yes. So James Cameron provides a lot of predictive programming for the masses. His Titanic. So you have the Titanic, which splits and it sinks. And it looks like the Twin Towers, but it's like 4 years before. So you have James Cameron connected with the Titanic movie, and he's filming a documentary about it on 9/11. And now James Cameron did the Terminator, and the Terminator has 9/11 predictive programming, and it has the nuke. So the connection here, though, is that the Terminator has been consistently associated with Trump in his marketing. And in the Revelation 9/11, where it talks about Abaddon in the sea or a bad dawn like Trump, there's another name in there. It's Apollyon, which also translates into Terminator or Exterminator. So you have this consistent theme of the Terminator in the abyss at the destroyed, sunken Titanic, with the correlation with the sunken towers because he was filming Ghost in the Abyss on that day. So my point is more connection between the concept of Trump, Beast from the Sea, and the nuke in predictive programming. So that does seem to be a reoccurring theme here. So I kind of think the way it's going to play out in Normie Land is it'll be some domestic violent extremist thing blamed on, of course, Trump's right wing politics or something.
Yeah, but the reason, look, the only reason that I'm against that theory is because the violent extremists can't come up with a nuke. That's the only reason. I understand where you're coming from with that, but I believe it would have to be something so, you know, so like I said, it has to be something so big that it changes the world. That way, people will be like, "No, we can
Yes.
never use a nuke again." You know,
Well, in some of our
something like that.
fears, in many of these storylines that lead up to it, it's like it's the white nationalists working through the internet with Russians. So there's a connection here between, of course, the internet and free speech, allowing extremists to be influenced by foreign powers, and they have to shut down the internet as a result. So the idea here is that the white nationalists are the useful stooges for America's enemies. And this was kind of the subtext in Leave the World Behind, and that movie was produced by the Obamas. And it's just full
Right.
of symbolism for America falling, and all the numbers are there, and it has the release date of 11/22, which is Kennedy's death date. It has a zip code with a
Right.
11963, which has the reverse 9/11 and 1963. So the predictive programming connected with Obama is also very much a part of what is being foreshadowed right now.
Yeah, and the only reason, see, you have to watch my videos to understand this. That Elvis, it's all about the triple crown with Elvis. Elvis, his Obama and Trump are his two crowns. See, Elvis's crown is Trump. Trump's crown is Obama. Okay, so I know it's hard to understand this, but uh, the reason that Obama was chosen is because of his birth date. Okay, his supposed birthday. Who the hell even knows if that's even his real birth date? But uh, it all connects to Elvis. Uh, it connects to Elvis. I can't explain it here. It's impossible for me to explain it on the air here.
Oh no,
But
there's a lot. I mean, you go into it for people don't know. 8/4 is the 216th day of the year, which is 6 times 6 times 6. And it's also the number 216, according to Pythagoras. It's the phoenix number, the phoenix cycle. So you have the theme
yeah,
of
and
death, rebirth, mark of the beast, all built into that date.
well, interesting that you mentioned Phoenix for the August 4th because uh, uh, the NASA they launched the Phoenix on August 4th back in 2007 or something like that. I can't remember, but it was launched on August 4th, the Phoenix. Uh, but anyway, now I forgot what I was talking about. But yeah, let me just real quick talk about August 4th. So when remember I told you Trump was 55 when 9/11 happened. Guess how old Obama was in 2016. And why is 2016 important? Because that's when Trump was elected president, and 2017 is when he became president. So Obama had turned 55 years old in 2016, okay? And that's the number of Satan, just like Trump was not 55 during 9/11. And in 2016, see, Obama is just the third wheel. See, Trump is more of the bigger piece of the puzzle. Elvis is at the top, then Trump. That's why Trump had to be 55 during 9/11. And then Obama was 55 uh, in 2016, and Trump was elected in 2016 and became president in 2017. And 2017, 2016 sounds like the numbers 216, 217. Same numbers, just adding
Yes,
a zero.
I see that.
And 216, 217 is August 4th. August 4th is the 216, 217th day of the year. And 216 plus 217 equals 433. The 84th prime number is 433. So it's like it's everything matches so perfectly, you know. And that's why it has to happen on leap year, because it has to connect to 216 and 217 to
Yeah,
both,
I
you
happen to
know.
think that these dates are fudged, but it's really important that they use these dates for their astrology and their occult code. Like, Hakeem Jeffries, the first black Speaker of the House, has similar mannerisms to Obama, and he has Obama's birthday, 8/4. Like, to me, I look at these things. I look at these like gremlins, like Kyle Rittenhouse and Greta Thunberg having the same birth date to the day to the year. I'm like, okay, it's heavily it's all story time, but these numbers tell a story. Like the coincidences between John Hinckley shooting Reagan. John Hinckley's birthday is the same as JFK's birthday, or JFK's birthday 529. Isn't that the
The backward,
yeah,
the reverse date of August 4th. It's
exactly.
the reverse date of August 4th. Yeah.
So these deaths are all synchronized and connected, and I think your methodology here is fascinating. The fact that you've been able to arrive at these, and a lot of these things are just undeniable. But let's take some questions from the comments because a lot of people are somewhat new to this, but what we're not new to is the idea that everything is being scripted and it's leading to something, and predictive programming always leads to something. And there's been a ton of material for whatever's going to happen with Trump, and it's just been stacking up and stacking up as of late.
And remember, I was telling you about the crown. Go ahead and ask. Hold on, just real quick. You were talking. I was talking to you about Obama being the Trump's crown. That Jeffries that you're talking about, he's from Crown Heights in New York. So besides being born on August 4th, that Jeffries guy.
Interesting.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I asked anyone if anyone has any questions for clarification. I mean, I went to watch the Elvis movie when it came out because you had said that Elvis's face would be shown to the whole world, his vision would be put out there, and his visage. And that movie had all kinds of symbolism that speaks to your subconscious. It's like they have the superimposition of the Space Needle with then the needle they're injecting into Elvis, who's in a purple robe, unconscious on the ground, and then he wakes up. And the way they play it out, they're telling stories, and the story they're telling is about something other than just some rock star, but there's a deeper occult meaning to it all. And it's just like the phoenix symbol is so prevalent in this reset talk that we've been talking about. And interestingly, after the Twin Towers went down, Donald Trump was on a program or on a plan to replace it with something called the World Trade Center Phoenix, which they didn't go with, but just the fact that they almost called it that is very significant. Dua
Yeah, I
Samhira has
think
a
I
question.
heard that.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I think I heard that from you the first time about that Phoenix being called the Phoenix.
Yep, would have been too obvious. So we have a couple things here. Someone mentions that Elvis was one of the first highly publicized death fakers, or someone supposed to still be alive, which is interesting to note here. But questioner asks, was Elvis aware of his part in all of this?
Oh, absolutely. His dad, there's no doubt in my mind that his dad is connected to this satanic thing that's going on here. And just look at their family. Just look at the mother. Look at Lisa Marie, how evil she looks. And look at Priscilla Presley. Look how evil even though they talk like they're nice, they look like vampires. It's like they, they
They do.
they don't look normal, these people. And they had a grandson that died just recently, also in 2020. And that same day that the Elvis Presley's grandson died, Kelly Preston died. Get it? Preston. You got the P-R-E-S and the T-O-N for Washington. Presley, T-O-N. And president starts with P-R-E-S. And P-R-E-S is the first four letters of serpent, too. S-E-R-P, backwards, P-R-E-S. And the word president is the words serpent ID. I'm using I created that years ago. President is serpent ID, and Presley is president. And Presley's house, Graceland, looks like the White House. It's a mirror image, kind of. Of course, it doesn't look exactly like it, but it's made in that same image.
Right.
Graceland.
Well, I remember. I think it was in 2021. We were watching like what's going to happen on 8/4, and we get this headline, and it's like President Trump dead, and you look at the whole headline, President Trumpka. So like it's like they're teasing it out, where
Yeah,
the next morning it's
yeah.
the Union
That was
President Trumpka. Like that's just
Yeah,
too
that's
much.
right. I couldn't believe what I was seeing that day when I showed that, because I was looking for some kind of predictive programming that day, and that morning on the day after August 4th, not the day after, like 5 hours after August 4th finished, it was like 5 in the morning. CNN puts a headline: a Union President, President Trumpka, dead. I'm like, what in the? I go, you got to be kidding. So, and by the way, they say he died on 8/5, this President Trumpka, but he died in his sleep. So he could have died at 8/4. See, that's why it's 8/4, 8/5. You see it? They couldn't figure out what day he died, but they gave him 8/5 as his death date.
Yeah, well, the timing
Mhm.
of that headline, it was jaw-dropping because you're like, okay, clearly this is coordinated and this is predictive programming, and they're building up to it. Upside Down Guy says Elvis died in the throne room, and Salty says Elvis the King got the royal death flush. What do you have to say about that?
Well, I always talk about that where Elvis, who's known as the king, Seattle's in King County, where Washington is. Elvis is known as the king. He dies on the throne, which is mockery of God. They say the throne is the toilet, complete mockery. And what was Elvis doing the moment he died on the throne? He was reading a book called The Scientific Search for the Face of Jesus, used by Frank O. Adams or something. So you see what I'm saying? It's complete mockery what they were doing. So Elvis dies on the throne. Elvis knows the king, and of course Jesus is the king. Okay, there's only one king, and that's Jesus. And he died reading a book called The Scientific Search for the Face of Jesus. And if that's still not enough, the king references the fact that Seattle and King County and Elvis died. I mean, Elvis was known as the king. Martin Luther King was killed in Memphis, Tennessee, where Elvis lived and died. So the king had the king whacked.
Right. I remember you went into this with the Kings, and this is all intriguing. Someone points out 4/8, the eclipse date, is the numbers reversed, and I want to bring this up. A few days before the 4/8 eclipse, there was a 4.8 magnitude earthquake, and the center was on Trump's golf course. But on Drudge Report, it said 4.8 Mag, like MAGA, and I'm like, wait, 4/8, 4/8, and then Trump's golf course with the crosshairs on it for the epicenter of the earthquake. So I thought, okay,
Yep, I talked.
that's got to be it, right? It's got to be
Yeah,
predicting 8/4.
yep, yep. I talked about that the day it happened. It was unreal. Yeah, it was totally like predictive programming. And by the way, let me just go back to before I forget the MLK connection. Martin Luther King was killed on 4/4, but it was a leap year. So it landed on the 4/5 day. You understand? 4/4 landed on the 4/5's regular day. So 44/45 is 89. Elvis turned 89 this year. And who's the 44/45 president? Is Trump. And who was the 44? It's Obama. Obama's the 44th president, but Trump is the 44th person to become president, 45th actual president to take office. So that's why Obama had to have a connection to the August 4th, because he was the 44th president. And and the 44 is connected to Trump because Trump's going to get his head won on August 4th. And that's why Trump being the 44th person to become president and 45th actual to take office, 44 plus 45 is 89 again. And the word Space Needle equals 89. Exact same, I mean, not exact same, but it equals 89. Same thing as Elvis turning 89 this year.
Okay, this is all very interesting here because not this year, but last year on 4/4, Donald Trump was being arraigned. That's when he was arrested. And that happened to be the 55th, is that number 55, the 55th anniversary of MLK's assassination. So here he is,
Yep.
4/4, 55th anniversary. It's the 44th birthday of Heath Ledger, Joker. So there's another 44. And I'm connecting it as 4 is a cross. So 4/4 is like a double cross, second coming symbol. But then at the same time, Jamie Foxx had just been reported as having died and been resuscitated, and he was 55. His name has an XX in it. I'm just pointing out that there's a lot of second coming stuff that was encoded into a lot of the narrative at that time. And that Holy Week before Trump was arrested on SNL, they had him at the Last Supper as Christ. They've been really hyping this up. And one more thing here, this can't be a coincidence. When Alec Baldwin shot that cinematographer and the production assistant, he was, again, Alec Baldwin is known as dressing up as Trump on SNL. Well, the guy he shot, Joel Souza, has the birthday of Trump, 6/14. So I'm like, that's kind of interesting. Somebody with a Trump derangement syndrome dialed up to 11 shoots a guy with Trump's birthday, 6/14, and at the same time, the movie Don't Look Up had just come out about a comet about to hit the Earth in 6 months, 14 days. So I'm like, okay, 6 months, 14, June 14th, comet hitting the Earth, and then Alec Baldwin had previously said that playing Trump made him wish for a meteor to hit the White House. So you see these things kind of
Oh, that's a
piling all together?
yeah, yeah. No, that's a good one right there. That very end, how you connected it, and of course, Trump's born on 6/14, and he's going to get his head wound on August 4th, and 6 times 14 equals 84. So just let me tell you this, that yeah, I did that video about the Joel Souza being shot, and he was born on 6/14, and the fact that Alec Baldwin plays Trump, on stupid SNL, and that was the whole point of that. But here's the real point: is that he survived. Because see, Trump is going to get his head wound. They're going to proclaim him dead, and he's going to survive. Okay. After he's going to get a deadly head wound, but he's going to survive that deadly head wound. So, but they're going to proclaim him dead first, and then somehow he miraculously heals. I don't understand how, but and that's another connection to how Obama has been seen as they've been predictive programming as Obama being raising people from the dead. Have you heard my theory on that? You must have heard that, right, a few times.
Actually, yeah, tell us about that because this ties into a couple other points I want to get up in here, but this Obama connection and the raising of the dead thing.
Yeah, well, this stupid garbage theory about Nelson Mandela, because if you guys know my earlier videos years ago, I used to talk about the man-son code. Well, originally it was King Man-son, but anyway, the man-son code being a fake narrative anytime you see that in the news. So Nelson Mandela, the Mandela theory, which I don't believe in, it's just a bunch of nonsense, but the Mandela theory came out during Obama's presidency. And that means that during Obama's presidency, he brought Mandela back from the dead, because that's the theory, that Mandela was brought back from the dead and Obama was the president. Okay, so he brings back that person from the dead. Then he brings back, a congresswoman from the dead. So this Gabby Giffords, she was shot in Arizona, and Arizona is the 48 area code, by the way. 408 area code, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry, the 48th state. Arizona is the 48th state, which is the 84 backwards. The creature was shot, this Gabby Giffords, this congresswoman, and guess what day she was shot? On Elvis's birthday. And
Ooh, okay.
Obama visits her in her bed, in her hospital room. She was in a coma. As soon as he visited her, as he walked out, she opened her eyes. So he brought Gabby Giffords back from the dead. Okay? So that's why you have the connection of Trump being brought back from the dead on Obama's birthday. It's not going to happen on Obama's birthday. I'm saying they're going to proclaim him dead, and somehow he comes back from the dead. I'm not sure exactly what moment it will be, whether it's going to be that day or the next day or the next day, but most likely he comes back in the limelight probably 3 or 4 days later. But
Okay.
they proclaim him dead. Go ahead.
Okay, this is more to add because Obama, of course, produces "Leave the World Behind," which I mentioned came out on the assassination date of JFK. Well, this brings in Oswald, the character Oswald, Lee Harvey Oswald, and I think it was the 4th of July, so 4/7, 4th of July parade, 2022. Robert Cremo shoots up this parade, and this guy's got a 47 tattooed on the side of his head, and he's obsessed with Trump, and he goes to Trump rallies. So here you have this Oswald character, and they showed that he even had a picture of a newspaper clipping with Oswald on his wall. So an Oswald obsessed sniper shoots up a 4th of July parade with 47s on his head, on his car. Meanwhile, his mom's at Target, which is a kind of a funny joke. She's got a Target bag. He's a sniper. So Oswald was kind
Yeah.
of like brought onto the world stage. And I'm like, okay, here he is, and he's going to Trump rallies. So then, moving forward, this recent Super Bowl, the San Francisco 49ers quarterbacks, his name is Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy was compared to Lee Harvey Oswald. For some weird reason, they kept asking him, "Do you think you look like Lee Harvey Oswald?" A lot of people were saying that. So I thought that's kind of weird. The quarterback associated with Oswald, kind of a strange, random thing. But then I remember
Well,
the weekend, really quick, was performing at the Super Bowl, and had that head wound thing. The weekend, whose name is Abel, and who was born on 2/16. So February 16th. But you have the 216 head wound, football halftime show, and quarterback Lee Harvey Oswald. Just they threw it out there.
Well, I just was interrupting you because I want to make sure I don't forget. The reason they put that Oswald reference is because Trump's going to get his head wound on Obama's birthday, right? And Barack sounds like Barack. That's why. Do
Oh,
you
Brock
understand
Purdy,
Barack?
Brock. Okay, B
Yeah.
Rock.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. That's why. And that's why I mentioned. And by the way, speaking of that shooting you were talking about with the 47 guy with the tattoo, the 47 is the 7-4, and it would happen on 7-4, right? And 7 months, 4 days into the year, see, 7-4 is 6 months, 4 days into the year. But the date August 4th is 7 months, 4 days into the year. And which connects to the number 74 is very connected to Lucifer and Jesus, because Jesus created Lucifer, and that's why Lucifer thought, and that's why Lucifer was created perfect, because Jesus created Lucifer, and that's why Lucifer thought he was God, but he was a creation, not a creator, and that's why he got his ass tossed out of heaven. But the point I'm trying to make is the 7-4 is connected to Jesus. Jesus equals 74. Lucifer equals 74. And he lost his perfect name. See, that's why Lucifer became Satan, and he lost his 19 crown. That was the whole point of the connection. Anyway, I just want to make sure people understood why Jesus had 74 and Lucifer was 74, because Jesus created Lucifer. But anyway, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, very, very interesting. I mean, we're talking about this B Rock, Brock Purdy, Lee Harvey Oswald. That's just too perfect. And yeah, again, the weekend does this weird. I mean, I think it's just bizarre. This performance where his head has some kind of a wound on it of some kind, and it just seems like that's a little weird than his name being Abel, Cain and Abel, the head wound storyline. But then, of course, his birthday being 216, not the 216th
And,
day of the year, but it has that associated with it. So this is the Super Bowl is one of the most viewed ritual spectacles every year. So they've been putting this messaging out there pretty clear, even if we're not consciously syncing it up yet.
and the weekend, what was important about that, the reason that he was going around with the head wound is, besides the fact that he's born on 216, which connects to the August 4th being the 217th day of the year. Uh, he was born on 216. But what's important about that is the reason he was going around with that stupid bandages, connecting to the head wound for Trump, is because Abel, his full name, I don't know if you're able to get a computer, I forget how to, what his middle name and everything, but if you put his full name into the calculator, into the gematria calculator, the first row of numbers in the calculator will equal the exact same as Donald John Trump. So Donald John Trump equals the full name of that Abel dude, the weekend. And but not the backward numbers, only the forward numbers, which is the most important. So that his reverse numbers don't equal Donald John Trump, but the forward numbers do. And for the people who don't do gematria, you're not going to understand anything I'm talking about. But he has a connection to Donald John Trump, full name, that Abel. But here's the big one. Do you know how to spell the weekend?
Yeah, I have it up here on the screen. It's actually the full name is Abel. Looks like Mekonnen Tesfaye. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but I definitely have the
Yeah,
full
forget
spelling.
about that. Forget about that. That's correct. But I'm talking about, how does it spell the weekend? How to spell
Oh, it's the weekend D. There's no second E. There's no third E in weekend.
it? Right. Do you know why they took out that E?
No, why is that?
Because the weekend equals the exact same as the word's head wound.
Oh, that's interesting.
Exactly. Every number's the same. Backwards, forwards, reduced. So it equals head wound. And just real quick, there was another connection. Just give me a second here. I got
Sure.
to
And
type
let
this
me
in
bring
real
this up
quick.
because I talk about how there's a lot of people on X, on Twitter, using gematria in a very erratic way to make bogus predictions. And what I want to point out here is we're looking at something that the occultists have used since time immemorial to encode esoteric into the in your face exoteric. There's nothing new about ciphers and codes and secret meanings. And so what we're looking at here is a level of scripting, sort of like anagrams. They use anagrams, they use names that relate to the person's purpose in the story. So what we're looking at here is just par for the course, and you're just unpacking a lot of this symbolism.
Right, and you're right. I don't use. Listen, I don't just use gematria as my. See, this was like I said. The prediction dates were supernatural. I'm not going to get into how that came to be, but I I use common sense. Like, uh, how can so all these people who are saying a person is the Antichrist or this person is the Antichrist, they every day they have a different Antichrist, But you have to ask yourself, what is the criteria that makes an Antichrist? First of all, he's got to be beloved, okay? And and who is the main people that the Antichrist wants to go after? It's going to be the Christians. He's got to bamboozle them in order to make sure he takes their mark. So if Obama was the Antichrist, nobody in the world is going to take Obama's mark. You understand? Because the Christians would never do it. They'd be like, they'd rather go to the guillotine than take the mark of Obama. But they would definitely take the mark of Trump or the mark of Elvis, because Elvis is seen as an angel of light, which is how Satan comes.
Yes, yes. In fact, a couple of things here, because you brought up the number 55, and it reminded me. It's the 55th Q drop where it's about how the first arrest will shock the world. The storm is coming. And Trump was brought in on the 55th anniversary of MLK's assassination on 4/4 to face charges or to be on trial because of Stormy Daniels. So Storm is coming, Stormy Daniels. It's been this recurring theme. But another thing, he kicks off his campaign in Waco, and the night before, Netflix releases this program called Waco, An American Apocalypse. And he calls this campaign the final battle, which is Armageddon. So we cannot overlook or deny that this is the script and this is how it's playing out. And I was just remembering in that Roadhouse movie with Jake Gyllenhaal, he's compared to this character in a western called Waco Wade. But at Waco, you had a 33-year-old named Dave Koresh who was incinerated, a Burning Man, and he was pretending to be Jesus. They believed he was Jesus. So I'm just pointing it out here that this has been a theme that has just intensified since you first drew my attention to it. And every time I look at Trump, there's this dual meaning here. He's either the devil or he's some kind of savior. And he has fooled a lot of people. The evangelicals have been pretty much drawn into this. I'm not just talking about the MAGA Q fringe, but mainstream evangelicals see nothing wrong with this guy and his lifestyle, his Biff Tannen lifestyle. They're totally wooed by it. It's
Right.
it's remarkable.
Yeah, exactly. And um, like you said, there's all kinds of predictive programming events everywhere with this Trump. Don't forget, Trump was depicted on a cross as Ronald McDonald, right? Because Ronald McDonald has a red tie, kind of like Trump, and they called it instead of because they put Ronald McDonald on the cross, but they called it Mick Jesus. They took the Donald out and called it Mick Jesus. So they're telling you who they're talking about. Jesus is to them is Donald, who's going to be crucified on the cross. Did you see it? Do you want to put that up for the
Yeah, I
viewers?
will put that up. In fact, and another thing that I've seen as of late is that he's been compared to a mafia don and
Yeah, the Godfather, the
the
Don.
Godfather.
Yeah,
And so I've been making
yeah,
this connection between Abaddon, the beast in the abyss, the destroyer, and a bad Don. And that's I think that's not unintentional. Okay, let me see. Trump, McDonald's crucified. I think I've seen this one. Yeah, I see it. That's That's insane. The religious artwork
Yeah,
with this guy, it's like there's some of it's not even parody, to be honest.
yeah, but what's important is they called it McJesus. They took the Donald out. See, that's where the connection is. The Donald is the Jesus. McJesus, McDonald. Get it?
Yeah, I get it now.
That's the connection. Now, speaking of that, because by the way, that cross that you're saying was in Israel. Now, speaking of that, uh, now you know in Israel there's a lot of religious, supposed, you know who those people are. I don't want to say the J people. The religious, there's so many religious J people there. There is no way they would allow a gold statue of anybody there. Do you know that Benjamin Netanyahu, they put a gold statue of Benjamin Netanyahu in I guess a popular place in over there in Israel. Do you know that it lasted less than 24 hours? They took it down. They destroyed it. Okay, but Elvis, he has a gold statue, a 16-foot gold statue in Israel, and that's been there since the 80s or whatever. I don't know when it was created. It was created, many years ago. Uh, Elvis has a gold statue, 16 foot tall, and and how they get away with doing that, because that would be unbelievable blasphemy for them to have a gold statue. No religious, one of those religious, numbnuts over there, because they hate Jesus. Those people. That's why I have no respect for any of them. Those they would never have a gold statue there of anybody. But the fact that they put Elvis there and how they got away with it by making it look like, oh, it's just something innocent. They put a restaurant theme of all Elvis. Everything in this restaurant surrounding this gold statue of Elvis it's an Elvis themed restaurant. Oh, that's how they get away with it. Oh, it's just a restaurant. It's not that's why there's a 16-foot gold statue of Elvis in front of it, And you know how many people have made a pilgrimage to that place? Millions. Every time people go to see where Jesus walked in the area in the Middle East, they go there all the people go there too.
Oh,
All the
that's
people who love Elvis.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's typical. I mean, the way I look at the masses are dupes. They're purposefully put in the dark. They have hoodwinks on. They have wool over their eyes, and they're given simplistic, naive, childish explanations for things, and they just stop looking. They don't realize that there is an occult meaning behind all of this idol worship. And Elvis is a very like every pop star we see these days. They're always flashing the signs, the symbols. Yeah, this is idol worship in the sense of how magic is practiced. A couple of things here I just noticed or I want to bring up. So you mentioned 6/11 in Seattle and the nuke, and we recently had the Oppenheimer movie, and that number 6/11 or 11/6 have been consistently connected with the nuke. Oppenheimer wears a badge that's K6, which is 11/6. The film was on IMAX. It was 11 miles long, weighed 600 pounds. So that's the film that has this
Wow.
mushroom cloud. And then the
Wow.
Batman
Good
movie.
catch.
Oh yeah, that's and Oppenheimer with the K6. That's very clear. Then the Batman movie, which is kind of telling the story of right wingers blowing up a dam and flooding the polls, destroying the election, putting Gotham underwater. Do it on 11/6. So just a couple other things to add there. It's very consistent. The nuke is consistently attached to 11/6 and 6/11.
Yeah, and you want to talk about how Taylor Swift is connected to this?
Yeah, please, please. I saw someone asked about that.
Yeah, Taylor Swift. The reason that creature has been highlighted so big in why it was connected to the Super Bowl and all that, because have you ever seen the iPet Goat video?
Oh yes, yes. I think we all have that one. It's rich
Yeah,
with.
yeah, it, yeah. Within the truth community, most real truthers have seen the iPet Goat video. That iPet Goat video is depicting what's going to happen in Washington State. Now, pay attention. The Taylor Swift, she is the Apple girl. She's the one that's holding the apple, and she dressed exactly like that at that award show, the 66th Grammys. And 66 is the twin. Remember, twin equals 66, and that's how many years it was from Elvis's birthday to 9/11. And she's the iPad Goat girl. She's holding the apple in the middle of the 12 kids behind her in the classroom. So she's the number 13. She's the one, and then the 12 around her, like the disciples, Jesus.
Oh
And
yes, yes, and she makes the
yeah,
Taylor Swift is well known for encoding everything with 13, and she says every time she goes to an award show, she sits at number 13. She was 13 when this happened. Everything with her is
right,
13.
right. Yeah, 13. And her other favorite number is 31 because it's the backwards of 13, right? So, so she's all about the 1331. And wouldn't you know it that the sixth prime number is 13 and the 11th prime number is 31? You see that?
Yeah.
It's and what did she do in the first of the year this year? She broke Elvis's record, the top 200 Billboard something. So the very first story on January 1st was of Taylor Swift breaking Elvis's record, and it just so happens that this creature during the Super Bowl was her 13th game, right? And I have many 13 connections with that creature. I'm not going to get into it here, but uh, who is the creature dating? She's dating Elvis Presley. Travis Kelsey sounds like Elvis Presley,
Travis Kelsey.
and
Interesting.
Elvis Presley, and Travis, Elvis, Kelsey, Presley. She's dating Elvis Presley. And what did that idiot do when he had the Super Bowl trophy in his hand? What did he do? The very first thing he did.
He started
Do you
singing
remember what
terribly.
he did?
What he sang something. What was it?
Viva Las Vegas, because they were in Las Vegas, and Viva
Right.
Las Vegas is the Elvis song.
Okay,
And
yes, he
and what was he
belted out
doing? What was
Viva
his
Las
name?
Vegas really loudly with the trophy.
Yeah, and what does the trophy mean? Do you know that part?
No, what does the trophy mean?
The trophy is called the Vince Lombardi Trophy. He was the coach who won the first and second Super Bowls, and they named it after him, the Super Bowl trophy. And guess when Vince Lombardi's born?
Let me guess. Elvis's birthday or
No, June 11th.
6/11? Okay, 6/11 touch. Okay, fascinating. Fascinating. And that
So
Travis
yeah,
Kelsey Elvis that's interesting. That's a another level, like anagram basically, but with
yeah.
phonetics.
So Taylor Swift is the Apple girl. She was the 13th. She was that 13th person in that video, and uh, and who won Apple Entertainer of the Year in 2023, right before she won the Grammys in 2024. She won it in November. Who was the Apple Entertainer of the Year? It was Taylor Swift. So she's the Apple girl, and she dressed just like the Apple girl. And the very next day, iPetGo put up their video after she did that because they had taken it down for like 4 or 5 months. Then they put it back up as soon as she did her video. I mean, as soon as she was on the Grammys, the very next day they put or that day even they might have put it up. And in that video, she drops the apple in that iPad Goat video. She drops the apple, and the apple uh, breaks in half because that's what they're going to do. They're going to crack in. They're going to crack in the apple, right? What does the apple represent? Do you know what the apple represents?
What is it in this context?
Well, not only is it a biblical reference, but it represents Washington because Washington is the apple state. It's the number one producer of apples.
Okay, I was thinking
So,
Big Apple, but Washington State, I see that. And her connection to Pet Goat, fascinating that she's the 13th. Here on her website, she was born on the 13th, turned 13 on Friday the 13th. First album Gold in 13 weeks, 13-second intro. But she talks about it like it wasn't planned, and it goes on. Like, okay, 13 million views on her new song in 24 hours. It's ridiculous. So there's plenty here to suggest that you're right on target with Taylor Swift being connected to this bigger meta script. And that Travis Kelce singing an Elvis song, I didn't catch that. Very good catch.
Yeah, and the Apple reference, besides it cracking in half, it's also reference to the Big Apple, obviously, because Manhattan, New York is the Big Apple. And then I told you Seattle was originally called New York when it first came. Anyway, so you had the twin connection because the apple has like seeds on both sides of the apple or something. I don't know, but you know what I mean. It's like a twin connection. You have 611 and 911 going to happen, right?
And Manhattan
And
Project, the Manhattan Project is
there you go. That's another one.
another
Yeah.
correlation between the coming nuke and New York, etc.
Yeah, you made some really good connections with that Manhattan thing. I didn't know any of that stuff, but I knew that the nuke connection. That much I knew.
Yeah,
But
it's wild how this stuff is so deep, but people are trained to just absorb the news passively, take this information passively. They're not cognizant of the programming. And what you're doing is you're calling out the programming as you've seen it. And I have a few comments here. Violet Penguin says, even when JL has been wrong on the date, things happen on those dates. So these things are clearly connected. Haley Harmon says, Martin Luther King is Don King, never died. And Mr. Trustworthy says the 16-foot statue could correspond to Trump's 1-6 narrative. Yeah, that could very well be 1-6.
and and by the way, the Apple. By the way, the reason that Taylor Swift was chosen, that creature, is not only because of all the things that I just talked about, but the reason that Taylor Swift was originally chosen is because of her birth date. Let me explain to you what that's about. She was born one day before George Washington's death date. The creature was born on 12/13. This creature, Taylor Swift. She was born one day before uh, George Washington's birthday. I mean, George Washington's death date of 12/14. She was born on 12/13. And how many days are in between Elvis's birthday and her birthday? It's 11 months and 6 days. 11/6 exactly. If you add the days, 11 months, 6 days. So there's your 611 connection, right?
Yep.
And in 1989, that's the year the creature was born. This Taylor Swift. 1989 was the Elvis halftime Super Bowl. Elvis halftime Super Bowl was in 1989. Elvis wasn't there, but the whole halftime show was about Elvis. And some crappy Elvis impersonator, which looks nothing like him, but the whole thing was about Elvis. And that year, the Elvis halftime Super Bowl, the 49ers won it, right? And the 49ers played at Levi's Stadium, and Levi's is Elvis, is the word Elvis. Levi's equals, same letters as Levi's, same as lives, same as lives, Lives. That's why you had the Black Lives Matter everywhere, because it was Black Elvis matters, dark Elvis. That's what they're saying. And they wanted to make sure all Elvis's name was everywhere across the earth. And that year, the 49ers won it. And of course, 4 times 9 equals 36. And which is the 666 connection. And who was the winner? The 49ers won the game, right? And who was the quarterback? Joe Montana. Joe Montana is born on June 11th. You see what I'm saying?
Interesting.
And that year was the year that they had the Space Needle April Fool's prank. They came on live television and told the whole world. This King 5 News in Seattle said that the Space Needle collapsed. It was a April Fool's prank. Imagine if they did that now. You don't think that every station would be sued for doing that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember
Yeah,
that, and it was like no pretense of it being a joke. That was
right.
Yeah, that was another time. Um, Now the
Right.
birth date of Joe Montana 611. This is fitting a pattern because during the Super Bowl 47. So I think this is interesting because we are in the presidency race for number 47. But Super Bowl 47, which was in 2013, is when Colin Kaepernick was quarterback. And that's the one where you had the blackout. It went dark for 33 minutes after the halftime show. So the connection here is Blackout for 33 minutes. Colin Kaepernick was quarterback, and his birthday is 11/3, which is the Kraken Day. The day of, it's the reverse of 3/11, but 11/3 is the date of the election and the dispute, the big schism. But that number of the date, his birth date, very, I think, relevant here as we're entering into this 47th contest, which I think it's foreshadowed in the Blackout Bowl.
Well, also 47 connects to how many years it's been from Seattle Slew winning the Triple Crown on June 11th in 1977. It's been 47 years on June 11th. It'll be 47 years exactly. And listen, I'm not going to get into all the connections, but just real quick, just before I forget, you know who were the people that created the Space Needle? Like who were the ones who like built it?
I think it was called the Pentagram Corporation or something. Is that it?
Yep, yep. You got it. That's it. The Pentagram Corp. I mean, what is? I mean, that's connected, of course. The Pentagram is always connected to, Satan and whatever satanic stuff, right?
Oh, absolutely. And then you had the Pentagon, which construction began on 9/11, 1941. So the Pentagon, pentagram, there's a strong correlation here. The Space Needle is an interesting thing to really examine. They put like $100 million into it a few years ago, called it the Century Project. And the $100 bill, when you fold it up, has a Space Needle with some kind of a explosion above it on the back. So I've seen
Right.
something like that. And then, oh yeah, in Sonic the Hedgehog, he runs through Seattle dropping dynamite into the sewers and it blows up and causes a flood and he runs out of the Space Needle and he gets paid in $100 bills. And then there's this one called Free Guy where they hit a reset on the simulation and the guy who hits the reset has a $100 bill on his shirt. So I've consistently seen the 100 Century Project, the $100 bill also correlated with this particular Seattle thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's all kinds of predictive programming for this stuff. I'm trying to think of another one that just comes to mind. Yeah, my brain's not. I'm going blank. There's so much. I just can't even. Oh, let's talk about. You know what today's date is, right? Here in America, it's 5/17 still, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and um, I mean, if you're in California, it's 5/17. But you know why 5/17 is important? It connects to the 17/5, and I'll tell you why that's important. Because from MLK's birth to Trump's birth is 17 years 5 months exactly. From Trump's birth to JFK's death is 17 years 5 months and 8 days, but it's still 17/5, 5/17, and everything's connected to the 17 because Q is 17. Trump's going to get his head win in Ohio, which is the 17th state. Um, now I can't remember all the connections, but everything's connected to the 17, right? And today's date, May 17, 5/17, is the backwards reverse date of August 16th, which is the day Elvis died, August 16th. So that's another connection to 17/5, 5/17. But and just to solidify it, the 5/17, 17/5 is from JFK's death date to the exact day that Elvis died was 5,017 days. You see how it all connects to what I'm talking about? The When I was telling you that it was 17 years 5 months from MLK to Trump's birthday, and from Trump's birthday to JFK was 17 years 5 months.
Yeah, it's like to me this is indication of news bending, history bending, long-term scripting, and I point out to people that you can find predictive programming for Trump going back to 1958. And interestingly, because that's Tracked Down, that Western show where a guy named Trump rolls into town and he's going to protect everybody from a cosmic threat, kind of like Space Force. He's like the snake oil salesman. But that's 1958. But interestingly, Back to the Future goes back to 1958. and it's about time travel. And then, of course, Quantum Leap has an episode that takes place in 58 where Trump's in it. So, yeah, the numbers with Trump 17, 58 is a huge one with Trump, but these things are not coincidental. These are patterns that we've been picking up on. A commenter here, Anuful says, this is the most interesting show Tim has had so far. Yeah, I want to say thanks for coming on here. I wanted to get to you before 6:11, and we can
Yeah, I
certainly
want to.
touch base again because we just kind of did this spontaneously tonight.
Yeah. I definitely want to. I definitely want to do it one more time. That way, just in case there's other things we need to talk about. I'm going to put out some incredible information soon. So let's wait till after I put it out and let's do this again because I'm telling you, it's mind blowing info. And hopefully, you end up watching those videos that I put up in the more recent ones. You'll see coming up. Um, but for the people who are on your channel and they're going to come to my channel, just to if they want to check it out, make sure they come when they come to the channel. They go to the video section first and watch parts 1 through 7 of the 666 connections to Elvis. When you watch parts 1 through 7, that'll give you a understanding of why he's the Antichrist. Then go to the live stream section and just watch the last 10 months of videos. Just work your way back. All right. Then, but first go to the video section and watch parts 1 through 7 of the 666 connections to
So
Elvis.
then, what I'll
That's
do
it.
is when I send out my archives, I will put a hot link to your channel, and I'll put a note there. Watch 1 through 7, Elvis 666. I think everyone here will find it interesting and fascinating. Your videos are entertaining, as well as enlightening, informative, and whether or not people agree with it or whatever, as far as the big picture, these connections are not specious. They're not meandering. They're actually undeniable. It's kind of jarring. I like watching your content, so I'm glad I could have you on. And after your next big video, let's talk again.
All right, brother. Thanks again. And I appreciate you, putting it out there.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, thank you for the time, and I look forward to speaking with you again. And I'll make sure I put a link to your channel, and we'll get some people up to speed, and hopefully you'll have a lot of new commenters. Because one of the things about your live channel, your live streams that I recommend people watch for, is a lot, kind of like my think tank here. Many of your reoccurring commenters add a lot to the conversation. I always like going to your comments. I tend to pick up stuff, so I highly recommend it. So thanks again for your time, and we'll talk soon.
All right. All right. Take care.
Awesome. All right, everyone, that's Jewrassic-Liars. And look, we didn't plan this, so we didn't have an outline, but I'm very familiar with his work. And since we've been talking, he has been vindicated in the sense that Trump has been increasingly Christified. Trump has been increasingly conflated with Antichrist archetypes. And then, as I pointed out, I just watched on the random A Man in Full on Netflix, and I'm like, within 5 minutes, I'm like, okay, this is Trump. That's Melania. That's Ivanka. That's Wally. I mean, Wally's Barron. And then I'm like, wait, the mayor is Obama. The mayor's trying to take out, I say Obama's trying to take out Trump. So I'm looking at the subtext, and it ends with the Trump character dead on the ground. And I'm like, okay, this is sort of like Civil War, where it's obviously Trump who gets killed. So the public mind is being saturated with this stuff. But if you look at the messaging here, this is not some coincidental connection. The character's company is even called Trump Time, something like that. It's from a book from 1998 that they repurposed for Netflix in 2021, and they chose the director Regina King. And if you look at her background and what else she has been a part of, I think Boondocks and a few other things, these directors are chosen for their ability to communicate deep subtext and powerful messaging that people may not consciously pick up on, but your subconscious picks it all up. We are being programmed. If you didn't know, entertainment, the entertainment media out there, it's actually just programming. The entertainment is a side effect. The poison happens to taste good. You develop a taste for it. Let's see what I have here. Okay, Erica Creech says, what is the gematria for sideburns? He started the facial hair and hairstyle trend. Mass mind. He also did the snarling lip thing. A lot of this stuff is very antichristy. The hair in front of his head is like the snake on the forehead of the pharaoh. And in this, yeah, Trumptine, or it's like turpentine, but it's spelled Turmptine. But it's an obvious anagram. They call it Trump time jokingly. It sounds like Trump time. It's just the way he sounds, but it's mentioned in this article that came out after the book. So it's not like they just came up with that. It's predictive programming in a way, but for the most part, the subtext of that movie has references to George Floyd, police brutality, Barack Obama as a community organizer, works with this pastor who kind of reflects Jeremiah Wright, the one who said America's chickens have come home to roost with 9/11. So when you look at the overall picture after watching this, you're watching the fall of Trump, and somehow Obama's involved. And one of the main themes here that JLS pointed out is that this is some kind of a birthday gift to Obama in a way. And again, Leave the World Behind, Obama produced it, has foreshadowing in the sense of it being released on JFK's death date. And there's much, much more. I didn't catch this. He brought it up. Brock Purdy sounds like Barack. So the guy that looks like Lee Harvey Oswald looks like Barack. He looks like Oswald, but his name is like Barack. Very, very interesting. Thank you, Nicotramus. The IPS appreciates the support. He says, awesome interview. Other requests: Human Vibration, Les Luther, and Fake Nukes Phil. Yeah, I spoke with Fake Nukes Phil on a group call with Fakeologist, and we had a couple of callers like Dave J. Don't know why we let him in, but anyway, it was a great call. I want to talk to Fake Nukes Phil again. Human Vibration, I have spoken before. I would like to catch up. Someone recommended I check out her latest podcast. Les Luther, boots on the ground. He single-handedly auto-hoaxed the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Nothing but a decoy operation. Illusion warfare, which is his term. Oh, thank you for that. Violet Penguin points out Brock Purdy. Yeah, this was another connection. So Brock Purdy, quarterback, looks like Lee Harvey Oswald. Then I brought up The Weeknd with the head wound, performing at the halftime show. The Weeknd's birthday, 216, which is a connection to 8-4. Well, Brock Purdy, B is 2, P is 16, 216. So another connection there, not a coincidence. And there's so much more we can add on to this. I think a strong one here is the 4547 on the side of Trump's head, with the number 4547 having the prime of 616. Now, if you want to find Les Luther, you go to it's LezLuthor. He's on Twitter. I'll have to do an interview with him so we can introduce others to him. I've spoken with him before. His account is a must follow. So I appreciate the interview requests. And that's from Nicotramus. I'm going to go ahead and put these in my notes so we don't forget to follow up on it. Now, we haven't really gone through any of my notes for the night, but that's okay. A couple of other fascinating points. I think we all remember this. Biden's face is actually seen sniffing Idaho. I think his face is in Montana. But anyway, there is this map. You got to see it. It does look like Elvis's face on the Pacific Northwest. And it does look to be, if you look at Florida, it looks like the profile of Trump, and it looks like a gun. This stuff is all just symbolism, and they use shapes, sounds, phonetics, anagrams, ambigrams, code. We're deciphering the program that's used to manage billions of minds. Let me see. I'm not sure if he's anywhere else but Twitter, Anufo, but one of the things I want to do is get a lot of these content creators on Twitter to record with us. Like recently, I spoke with Crypto Kubrology, and I haven't even had a chance to catch up on that. We kind of fell behind because of my legal situation, but we'll get back to that. So there's this thing we talk about predictive programming all the time. But it first came out around 2006, where a lot of quote truthers were calling it synchro mysticism, suggesting that there's some kind of higher power or synchronicity behind these patterns, and they focus on the ritualistic aspects. And around this time, a number of them were specifically focused on Stanley Kubrick. But this whole area is interesting to me. But I talked to someone who had really done a deep dive, and Kubrick happens to be one of the preeminent top meta scripters. And Kubrick directed or was a part of the operation that brought us things like 9/11, but likely the JFK assassination, Dr. Strangelove, which has predictive programming for 9/11, including the Pentagon attack. Dr. Strangelove was released on 11/22. Not a coincidence. And it's also interesting to note that Lee Harvey Oswald was working at Riley's Coffee before the assassination. And when reporters went to Riley's Coffee to talk to his coworkers, they found that pretty much everybody there from Riley's went to go work for Boeing and NASA. They just went to go work for NASA. So I'm thinking Oswald, according to his letter to his girlfriend or whoever it was at the time, he had alluded to the fact that he would be working there too. So what I'm suggesting, he did work for NASA. He just didn't go to the fake moon landing department. He went to the grassy knoll. Tozer says Regina King was on a show called 227. The lead in the show is Marla Gibbs, whose birthday is June 14th. The name King, we can go into this. It goes deep. Like last year, you had Tyree Nichols, who was beaten and then he died in custody. His beating was reminiscent of the beating of Rodney King. Martin Luther King's daughter shows up to the protests. This is when they shut down I-55 and that the sun had a chunk fall off at the 55th latitude, and it's the 55th year since MLK's assassination. So MLK's daughter is involved in this Terry Nichols psyop, and they do their eulogy at the Mason Temple, where MLK gave his last speech. And then fast forward a couple of months, and I followed all this when it happened. Jamie Foxx turns 55, kind of dies, comes back. Trump arraigned 4-4. But the King stuff is what was reoccurring here. Rodney King, Martin Luther King, and by the way, Rodney King was beaten for 1 minute and 19 seconds, 119. He was hit a total of 33 times. You can see it on Wikipedia. Now, anyway, but the names are all just significant. I wish we had more time because that summer, They Cloned Tyrone came out. And if you haven't seen They Cloned Tyrone, I highly recommend it for a few reasons. It's a combination of Truman Show, Dark City, and Westworld, and a few others. It's a great movie, but it has a lot of Kubrick references, by the way. Keith Sutherland's in it, kind of solidifying the Dark City connection. But Jamie Foxx is in it. And the reason why it's significant is that Jamie Foxx, 55, dies, resuscitated. People think he's a clone. So these clone rumors come out about Jamie Foxx. Then the movie, They Cloned Tyrone, comes out. Now, what does cloning mean in this context? It's like brought back from the dead. Tyrone's dead, then he comes back. Rising from the dead. And what I was connecting here is the name Tyrone to Tyree, Tyree Nichols, to Trey, like Trayvon Martin, the Trey, the Tyre, King of Tyr, Hiram. It's all connected to the Masonic death resurrection ritual. All of them. We'll get into all this later when we have more time. Conscious Daughter says, I did a video exposing Rodney King and the whole LA riots. You know, if you want to send me a link, I would like to look at that. I would definitely like to look at that, and I'll do a review. Let's see what else here. Another commenter says, Taylor Swift is a clone of Xena LaVey. I kind of overlooked the Xena LaVey thing for a while. But then I remembered Xena LaVey was baptized as a child in the Church of Satan. She was baptized and given a pink Baphomet. At the time, Anton LaVey was associated with Jane Mansfield, who was a living Barbie doll, lived in a pink palace. And they knew full well the significance of pink. It's not just because it's pretty or Barbie. It's the color of the New Age Whore of Babylon. So it's not a coincidence that the only time you really saw Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl is when she was drinking from a chalice and her friend was raising the sign of the horns. Because in the satanic ritual, the chalice is a significant symbol of the goddess. It's the Holy Grail. And the contents of the Holy Grail, and this is from Crowley, are pink. Why? Well, it symbolizes the merging of Babylon and the beast. Babylon, red, beast, white. Red and white, pink, the Templar colors. This is why the Super Bowl rituals, as of late, Alicia Keys represented the goddess in red, and Usher in white with the phoenix on him. The year before that, Rihanna comes down, red, with her pregnant belly revealed, and then she's surrounded by male dancers in white. And this followed Kendrick Lamar coming out in white with the crown of thorns, surrounded by dancers in red, covered in blood. So again, the red and the white, God, goddess, pink, Babylon and the beast, all of this is out there in our faces, and I don't think the connection between the high priest of the Church of Satan's daughter and Taylor Swift is accidental. These are intentional resemblances. Jerome Haight says, "Hey there, you did an excellent job with Jewrassic-Liars 26. Thank you for taking him seriously. Hope you connect with Garrow often." Yeah, and I used to call him Jewrassic-Liars 26 because, like us, they take out his channels all the time. And I started following him when he was on number 26. Lean Dion says, Lil Uzi Vert, the pink tape with the mind nuke and the US flag. Yep, Lil Uzi Vert with the $24 million diamond on his forehead. I think someone ripped it out. 24, reverse of 42, Lucifer, and I think it even refers to possibly the crown. I think there's a connection here with Lucifer and his crown, some gem falling out. In fact, there's this interesting connection between Lucifer and some story. I think they carved the Holy Grail from the gem that fell out of his crown. Has anybody heard that? I don't want to get too sidetracked here. Okay, here we go. The Grail was fashioned from an emerald that fell from Lucifer's brow after he was cast out of heaven. Oh, speaking of emerald, Seattle is the Emerald City. Send it to infiniteplanesociety@gmail.com. Here's what Lean Dion was referencing. This is a fascinating image. We had taken this apart in our Discord server. This is Lil Uzi Vert facing what looks to be a mushroom cloud with an eye in it. And I think this is all alchemical symbolism here. The mushroom cloud here looks like a brain. And of course, the idea of his liberty spikes as well, like a corona on his head. But the color pink has just been very prominent this last year. I have to watch that Godzilla movie. We've been talking about this, like Godzilla versus Godzilla X King Kong, New Empire. Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire. This is another connection. Empire starts with EMP, like an EMP blast. Frozen Empire, nuclear winter, new empire, the reset, the new empire on the ashes of the EMP and everything else. But the color pink has been very significant. If you remember, again, Oppenheimer, I've connected this with Barbieheimer, Babylon, and the Beast. And then Maui gets the fires, and they cover it with soil tachyfire, which is pink. And people have already made this connection between Maui and some kind of direct energy weapon, which likely has a reference or a connection with Godzilla, like his laser eyes. But the new Godzilla movie, from what I've heard, the color pink is a part of his thing. His spine turns pink or something before he breathes fire. But the pink skies, the pink background of King Charles, like what's with this? Dirk Zink says, "Hey Tim, I was watching you on Garrow's channel. I was impressed. Just subscribed. Awesome. And I'm going to be sending a lot of our listeners over there to check out his breakdowns. And for me, with anyone I'm talking to, it's really about the information, the perspective, and how we arrive at things. We all have our different conclusions, and I don't look at his work as, quote, prediction or prophecy, even though it may be that, because there are too many people who are claiming dates and trying to outdo one another. And a lot of them actually steal from Garrow's work. I remember last August 3rd, all kinds of anonymous Gematria accounts are out there talking about it. And what I concluded is this: something's going down, and they want to make sure that there's so much noise and and disinformation that nobody can figure out the truth of it before the masses have reacted. And they certainly wouldn't want someone who saw it coming to be platformed and have credibility as a witness against the PSYOP entertainment complex. They don't want any real prophets to have a voice here and discredit the big PSYOPs. So I see a lot of noise. The only one I listen to with regard to 8.4 is the source of this information. And I did watch the new Elvis movie when it came out, and it had some fascinating symbolism with the Space Needle. You know, the International Hotel has these three pillars, and at the very beginning, it has this scene where it looks like a Space Needle, which also has these three pillars. Anyway, I don't want to get too sidetracked. I have to end this now, but we'll be back. There's a lot to go over. Tomorrow's Infinite Plane Saturn Day, so I'll catch up on archives. I want to say once again, thank you to everyone who helped make this court case happen. You know, Google did not want to deal with it. Now they have to. YouTube, Google, Mind Control Central, they tried to shut us down, and a lot of people they unfairly they made rules that were, I think, unfavorable towards anyone not just robotically repeating mainstream. They destroyed what was a good thing. But anyway, Google and YouTube are going to have to own up to their suppression of our channel by not honoring their obligations to respect copyrights, etc. So they're going to pay, at a very minimum, they're going to be humiliated and embarrassed because they've been so shameful in their actions. It's just the opposite of free speech, the opposite of free exchange of ideas. You'd almost want to call them fascist. Thank you, Thirst for Truth. Appreciate that. Dirk Zink says everything is hidden in plain sight. Yeah, here's everything is hidden in plain sight. The public has been rendered visually illiterate, spiritually blind, uh, psychologically malleable, emotionally triggerable. Just saw something else on my Twitter feed. I'll have to get back to it. It looks like there's been a lot, by the way, there's been a lot of news about someone else from Boeing just got killed, some other whistleblower. There's been a lot of stuff about Boeing, and I'm pointing this out because there's a launch that's been delayed. NASA's going to send something to space with two astronauts. So I'm thinking two astronauts like the Gemini mission. We're entering into Gemini, and this much anticipated launch is consistently being delayed, and the name Boeing is stamped on it. So I'm just suggesting here, it looks like a disaster waiting to happen if you've been following this meta script. Lean Dion says X got flooded with accounts not long after JL content circulated. Oh yeah, there's so many. And Dirk Zink says I love movie decodes. They hide so many. It's really amazing how deep these movies go and how the movies are all interconnected and how you find these actors that are carrying archetypal roles from movie to movie. And for the last few years, we've been focusing on directors and like individuals like James Cameron, who are clearly involved in not just making movies, but making the news and blending real and fake. Yeah, commenter says courts are compromised. Don't put your faith in a judge. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Um, the system is very indifferent. You have to have the right pieces in place for this to work. What is working in our favor is the high visibility of the defendant. When it's revealed that I am suing a hacker who actually is part of the White House press corps. Dirk Zink says, Tim, looking at your name, you get the truth about the shape of our Earth, and you're smart. You realize space is fake. Am I right? Yeah, space is the false heaven for the scientism paradigm. I mean, up is up, down is down. If you buy into the conventional paradigm of a spinning ball in space, there is no up and down. Everything's relative. Everything is chaos. Nothing means anything. It's the complete opposite of how things are. And I'm not even convinced that the Earth is a shape, as in, is it a place floating in an empty place? Why? Why do we have to make that as our starting assumption? I go off of what I can see and experience and verify without having to rely on a leap of faith in the black box. And so if I'm left without an answer, if I'm like, I don't know, hey, it's better than a false explanation that one, kills curiosity, and two, disconnects you from reality at the most fundamental level. Once your head is in the box, once you enter into Normieville, you're disconnected from your intuition in the sense that intuition, souls, meaning, these things don't exist. Science can't measure it. Lean Dion says, Elon recently posted about taking man's consciousness to Mars, mind space. Yeah, another thing, space is being used in another way. It's like a metaphor for the collective commons. Like we all have to agree on the same heaven. So space is how they unify everybody. And just like Musk is the leading polluter in outer space with space junk, he's the leading polluter in cyberspace with mind junk. So they want the public to reject Elon Musk, reject the rich people with too much influence, who can influence minds, who can have too much influence up above. Another character worth looking into and deconstructing. Anyway, I have to get back to work, but hey, tomorrow is Infinite Plane Saturn Day, so if you're not on the newsletter, subscribe so you don't miss it. And then what we'll do tomorrow is I'll premiere all of the last 3 archives, and on tonight's archive, I will include links to Jewrassic-Liars' channel. So thanks for the comments. Appreciate the feedback and all the support. All of you are a part of this. So it's not just me against Google, YouTube, and the dark shadowy forces that do the psyops, which is what we're really aiming at here. It's the entire think tank. This is our revenge. So the fact that we moved the case this far and that we have it past this final hurdle is kind of a big deal. It's been 6 years, and we're about to reach a conclusion. So I look forward to how this all rolls out in the coming weeks and months, and I'm going to be here in studio, likely also in the mornings. So if you're not subscribed to the main channel, you want to, because I'm going to do the IPS morning deprograms, generally on video, and members only, so I can get comments from subscribers first. All right, this is Space is Fake AF, Chief Crow. Have a great evening. I'll see you all for Infinite Plane Saturn Day.
Because you can see the stars.
Oh yeah.
And
we were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon.
It's not black and white. I mean, it's black, but there's all kinds of polka dots.
Space is fake AF. Space is fake AF.
There's more than stars. You can see planets. You can see moons.
you see the gas